Caring Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast, recorded at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @QNReview. That is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@QNreview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 9th of May 2024. From the news section. Food Bank opens brand new warehouse to help cope with demand. This is an exclusive article written by Taylor Murray and read by me, Corey. Renfrewshire Food Bank has opened a brand new warehouse in Renfrew, but says that it's not a cause for celebration. The new facility aims to help cope with the increasing demand of its services, with a lifeline network now catering for approximately 10,000 people across the local authority. Crystal Clayton, Senior Manager at Renfrewshire Food Bank, says that having to get a bigger building to cater for people shows the problem is getting worse rather than better. When talking about the opening of the new building, Crystal said, "It's daunting that we have had to increase the capacity of the building tenfold. It is all because the numbers are constantly going up and up and up. We don't see an end to it. Standing here today in this shining new building should not be seen as a celebration or as an achievement, but how it is needed at this moment in time. There needs to be a wider conversation at a national level about tackling this more and changing it in the future." The 33-year-old revealed that helping people break the cycle of poverty is not just about supplying food packages anymore, and that those coming to food banks need all the support they can get. She said it is all about joining up working and what we can do as a community and work together. We need to make sure that people are getting the food support primarily, but the full support that is available to help them improve their situation. Because if you don't get the full support, you'll never be able to improve the overall situation you find yourself in. The volunteers at the food bank got their new home ready and opened in under a week, whilst maintaining their distribution centres, something they said they had to do as they were still looking to help those in need. Crystal said that it is thanks to all the hard work, dedication and desire from the volunteers that they were able to get it done. A tour was given to partners, volunteers and people in the community on Tuesday, April 30th, to showcase how the new operation would work. Lisa Belty, 40, works for the Trussell Trust, and she said that their aim is not to have a single food bank in any community. Lisa added how she would like to see an essential guarantee introduced into legislation that would look to provide people on universal credit with the value of what essential goods cost at that specific time. She said, "We want people to have enough money in their pockets to be able to afford food for themselves. It is just unforgivable that food banks are needed right now, and Renfrewshire Food Bank moving into this space is indicative of that. We believe in campaigning for change at a national level. One of the things we would really like to see introduced is an essential guarantee, as that would provide the basic essentials that we are all entitled to. People shouldn't be forced to turn to food banks for these items at all." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was an exclusive article written by Taylor Murray and read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 9th of May 2024. From the news section. Glasgow nursery frustrated over repeated vandalism attacks. This article is an exclusive article written by Morgan Carmichael and read by me, Corey. A Glasgow nursery has praised the local community who rallies round for a fundraiser after they suffered countless attacks of vandalism on their property. From their sheds vital for storing resources and toys overnight being rendered unusable to broken glass left in the garden, children and staff at Ross Hall Nursery in Cardonald have been feeling the profound impacts of the persistent, senseless destruction since it began last year. Natasha MacArthur, head of Ross Hall, told the Glasgow Times, "We feel so frustrated by the senseless destruction of the nursery's property. The staff are feeling a range of emotions, namely frustration, disappointment and concern, especially for the safety of the children. These kids have been left confused and upset because they sense the disruption in their familiar environment. They have been asking questions about what happened and why things look different. They have concerns about their own safety and the security of their belongings." Natasha added, "The vandalism has remained a persistent problem and is leaving a profound impact on our children and families." Parent Angela Kelly concurred, saying, "It just makes me feel upset, annoyed and angry. These are resources that the kids use for learning or items they make at nursery. It's their work being destroyed, which is disheartening to kids, staff and parents." Angela added that her husband tries his best to repair as much as he can. She says, "When my little boy sees something broke within the nursery, he says, 'My daddy will fix it.' And that's not something he should need to say while going to his place of learning." The vandalism began last year and ceased slightly in November before starting up again over Easter. In the fallout of the latest bout of vandalism over the Easter weekend, the community has now rallied together to raise just short of £1,000 for the nursery. It comes after Ross Hall Nursery set up a GoFundMe. Natasha said, "We have been truly amazed by the incredible amount that has been raised thus far. It's been absolutely wonderful and we're incredibly grateful to everyone involved. The unity and support shown by our nursery and local community in raising funds to enhance our garden are truly heartening. It's fantastic to see such dedication to ensuring the safety and usability of this space for our children. We firmly believe that outdoor experiences are integral to their learning and development, and this effort will undoubtedly contribute to that goal." Angela added, "It's amazing to watch how kind and generous people are in helping make it a better place for our children and staff. But it's also sad that this needs to be done in the first place." The children and staff at Ross Hall also hosted a dance-a-thon to raise some more money. Funds raised will be used to erect more safety measures and to refurbish what has been damaged, including procuring new sheds, erecting a sturdy fence, and revitalising the nursery garden. The vandalism has been reported to police and community officers. Community police have provided the nursery with advice on safeguarding the garden and deterring future incidents, and both police and community wardens have increased patrols in the area. Due to this, Natasha said the past few weekends have been relatively calm. To donate to the GoFundMe for the Ross Hall Nursery, go to www.gofundme, that's GoFundMe.com/F/growing-dreams-A-nursery-garden-shed-fundraiser. You could also go onto Google and simply search GoFundMe Growing Dreams, a Nursery Garden Shed Fundraiser. That article is from the Glasgow Times. It is from the news section. It was an exclusive article written by Morgan Carmichael and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times, on Thursday the 9th of May 2024. From the news section. What is Glasgow's alcohol court and how does it work? This article was written by Esther Tarney and read by me, Corey. Glasgow Sheriff Court operates a unique service specifically to deal with offenders who admit to having a harmful relationship with alcohol. Here is everything you need to know. The Glasgow Times is running a series this week investigating alcohol as a factor of crime in the city. The alcohol court sits within the same Carlton Place building where people accused of minor crimes are required to attend. What is the alcohol court? A problem-solving court by definition, this special part of the justice system was established in 2018 and followed the creation of the successful drug court in Glasgow, which has been in operation since 2001. Currently, 3 sheriffs preside at these hearings. As Sheriff Barry Divers explained to a man who appeared before him last week, they deal with people whose offending has been contributed to the fact that they abuse alcohol. Through court appearances, they are guided towards help and supported in their recovery instead of receiving punishment only. What happens to people at the alcohol court? When attending the court as an accused, many people admit to struggling with alcohol dependency through their lawyer, as part of their defence. If the sheriff deems they are suitable, these people are referred to the alcohol court. There, their situation is reviewed and monitored through regular periods of time. These men and women work with social workers and other people who are experts at helping people who have problems with alcohol, Sheriff Divers said. They can choose which courses, recovery cafes, programs to enter, and are encouraged to get in touch with charities, council services, or the NHS to find the best option for them. What kind of help is offered? Importantly, Gerard Bonar emphasised at the recent hearing, "We in this court support people who have a problem with alcohol and are committed to change. Offenders who don't attend recovery groups or commit further crimes can be sent back to remand court. If, however, they commit to getting help, they are sentenced, taking into consideration their willingness to turn their lives around." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Esther Tarney and read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times, on Thursday the 9th of May 2024. From the news section. Youth charged by police following incident in Cambuslang. This article was written by Ben Waddle and read by me, Corey. A youth has been charged after an incident in Cambuslang. Police say they were called to the wooded area near Birch Drive in the town following reports of alleged youth disorder recently. The force revealed they were made aware of antisocial behaviour and fire raising. After attending the incident, cops say one youth was returned home and charged in the presence of their parents. Meanwhile, the fire service extinguished the blaze. Now police have warned of the potential impact of deliberate fires, saying that they can endanger lives and harm communities. A spokesperson for Police Scotland Lanarkshire said, "Antisocial behaviour and fire raising in Cambuslang. Officers attended the wooded area near Birch Drive, Cambuslang, following reports of youth disorder. Results: 1. One youth returned home and charged in the presence of their parents. 2. Fire service attended and extinguished fire. Deliberate fires can endanger lives and harm communities. It's important to take steps to prevent them in your area and keep everyone safe." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Ben Waddle and it was read by me, Corey.
From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 10th of May, from the news section. Council officer claims dismissal was racist. Report by Sarah Halley. A dad who claims he was unfairly sacked from the council after being framed for stealing white goods said he was the victim of racial discrimination. Father of two, Eddie Vesey, 48, who denies any wrongdoing, is taking his case to a tribunal, bringing forward a number of complaints against Glasgow City Council. Mr Vesey, a British national originally from Albania, said he is fighting to clear his name after he claimed the experience of losing his job left him feeling suicidal. The ex-accommodation development housing officer believes his dismissal was racially discriminatory and he was framed, a tribunal heard this week. The tribunal heard managers referred to him as Albanian in emails. His connection to a suspected Albanian criminal, Sokol Sefaj, a former lover of Linda Spence, who was tortured and murdered and was also pointed out by an official. The tribunal heard Mr Sefaj, who has now passed away, was Mr Vesey's friend. Speaking before the tribunal began, landlord Mr Vesey claimed, "I am not a thief. I have worked very hard my whole life. I loved my job. I was feeling suicidal as I was discriminated against as an Albanian." Mr Vesey worked at the council between 2001 to 2019 when he lost his post after a disciplinary hearing over allegations that he stole white goods, but documents were referred to during the tribunal which exonerated Mr Vesey according to a barrister. But the tribunal heard these were never revealed to claimant Mr Vesey. Managers referred to Mr Vesey as Albanian during email discussions in relation to him, and one message said he was intimidating, the tribunal heard. Referring to an email from a council official, Mr Kelly, Mr Vesey said mentioning someone's national origin singles a person out as being different from other staff, but a lawyer questioned whether this is not just a statement of fact. Mr Vesey also told the tribunal how he was called the Albanian mafia guy and drug dealer by other colleagues as part of verbal harassment passed off as banter. He said comments were made regularly when he visited an office to carry out admin tasks. A council officer, Mr Scott, made allegations about Mr Vesey that he ordered white goods from the council for his own properties after a whistleblower report. But the tribunal heard later during the hearing that he was framed. It was understood Mr Scott was intending to seek advice from the police regarding the allegations. Emails shown during the tribunal yesterday revealed how Mr Scott pointed out a property belonging to Mr Vesey in Newton Mearns was linked to Albanian criminal Sokol Sefaj. Mr Sefaj had a relationship with the financial advisor Linda Spence, who was last seen in Glasgow in 2011. Colin Coates and Philip Wade were convicted for her kidnap, torture and murder in 2013, but her body was never found. The trial heard Miss Spence had been recruited as an informant by the police to gather intelligence on Mr Sefaj. Responding to questions from a lawyer at the tribunal, Mr Vesey said he had no knowledge of Mr Sefaj being involved in any organised crime and described him as a normal person and family man with 2 children. Referring to press reports that Mr Sefaj was suspected of drug dealing, running brothels and gun running, lawyer Francis Ross, representing the council, said, "I don't know how you can describe Mr Sefaj as a normal person." Describing Mr Sefaj as a friend, Mr Vesey said, "If he wasn't convicted, he's a normal person." Explaining how Mr Sefaj is now deceased, Mr Vesey said, "He died of normal causes." In his email, Mr Scott also pointed out to Mr Vesey was Albanian, which Mr Vesey described as discriminatory. Ms Ross said, "It is not racist for Mr Scott to report as a matter of fact that you and Mr Sefaj are Albanian." Mr Vesey said, "It is racist as I am a British national. I am of Albanian origin, but I am a British national." Ms Ross said, "It is reasonable for Mr Scott to seek advice from the police." Replying, Mr Vesey said, "I have never broken the law. I was never intimidating at work. I was friendly and approachable." The lawyer continued, "There is nothing racist in this email. It is just stating facts in order to get advice from the police." Mr Vesey said, You can't pinpoint people because of who they are and where they come from. Mr. Vesey received a dismissal letter in April 2019 and decided to withdraw from the appeal process, opting for tribunal instead. Misra said, "If you had genuinely felt your dismissal was unfair and amounted to discrimination, you would have attended." Citing concerns over what he felt was a delay in the processing of the appeal, Mr. Vesey said he had lost faith. The lawyer said it was the first available date, but Mr. Vesey said that the timeframe delays also exhibited racial discrimination. Barrister Ayoade Elisinla, representing Mr. Vesey, referred to documental evidence at the tribunal that exonerated the claimant. Mr. Vesey said the paperwork showed white goods were stolen by staff from a separate organisation used by the council and not him. The document was not shown to Mr. Vesey during the dismissal investigation, the tribunal heard. Mr. Vesey alleged the council knew about the existence of the document but wanted to frame him. He said, "It was the staff of RSBI who stole these items." Mr. Vesey said, "They wanted to frame me because of who I am and my nationality." Mr. Elisinla asked if any explanation had been provided to Mr. Vesey about why a document exonerating him over the theft of items was not given to him or his union representative. Mr. Vesey said there had been no explanation. It is also understood Mr. Vesey has never been contacted by the police in relation to the theft of white goods accusations. The tribunal continues. And that report was by Sarah Hilley. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 10th of May, from the news section. Man assaulted partner. Report by Connor Gordon. A woman claimed she was assaulted and manipulated by her boyfriend she met online. The 37-year-old stated she was repeatedly attacked by Christopher Harkins, 37, between January 2013 and April 2014. She told a court that initially, extravagant Harkins gave her gifts and took her on a holiday to Venice for her birthday. However, the woman said the relationship changed when they became an official couple after a month. The woman stated Harkins tried to isolate her, was verbally abusive towards her, and made her walk on eggshells. The woman also recalled a number of incidents where Harkins was allegedly violent towards her, which included her being pushed out of her home. Harkins was on trial at the High Court in Paisley, where he faces 2 rape allegations against a separate woman. Harkins, of Helensburgh, is further accused of a string of sexual offences against her and another woman. Harkins is also stated to have assaulted a further woman to the danger of her life and allegedly assaulted the 4th woman, whose recorded evidence was heard yesterday. The total of 18 charges spans between January 2013 and May 2019. The court heard Harkins added the woman on Facebook in October 2012. The woman told a jury that she was initially told she was added by accident. She later claimed Harkins later said to her that he looked her up after finding a newspaper article about her brother's death. The woman claimed extravagant Harkins bought her loads of champagne on a first date at Mansion House in Glasgow city centre. She stated they went home separately that night and she received a message from him that she had passed the test. The woman continued to see Harkins and became a couple within a month. She recalled Harkins being over the top with gifts, and he booked him a trip to Venice for her 26th birthday. The woman said Harkins went on to question her about her previous boyfriends. She claimed Harkins tried to isolate her from people that she was close to. The woman also recalled being called names by Harkins such as SL*T. She said, "We were standing up and he pushed me against the wall with my face and knocked over my lamp." The woman stated the pair did not speak about the incident. She claimed that she went to Dubai on holiday and Harkins was unhappy about it. The woman stated Harkins threatened her if she did not come home early enough, he would have a woman over. The woman claimed they moved in together at a property in East Kilbride in autumn 2013. She stated she struggled financially and Harkins wanted her to take out a loan for a DFS sofa. The woman also recalled days that she was in the house without money for heating or electricity. The woman claimed she was assaulted for a second time when she knelt down to pick up bags. She said, "He grabbed my hair and swung me backwards. He then let me go and spotted my work laptop on the couch. He opened the front door and threw it out into the street and it smashed." The woman stated she later had to lie to her boss that she dropped the laptop when coming out of her car. She stated the pair moved out of the property and back into their respective mothers' homes after Harkins allegedly caused drama with the landlord. The woman then moved into another property in East Kilbride, where she said Harkins was further abusive towards her. She stated Harkins cut her clothes with scissors and allegedly remarked, "You're lucky there are no knives in this house." The woman later recalled a third and final violent incident towards her at the end of the relationship. She said, "There was arguing and name-calling. He pushed me out the front door of the flat into the close. I was wearing pyjama shorts and a vest. I was knocking on the door to get back in. He opened the door and let me into the living room, and he was sitting on the couch with my phone. I walked to take my phone back and he kicked me on the stomach." Michael Meehan, KC, defending, put it to the woman that there was no arguing and name-calling but no physical contact. The woman replied, "There was violence." The trial continues today before Judge Alistair Watson. And that report was by our court reporter, Conor Gordon. From the Glasgow Times, Monday the 10th of May, from the news section, police officers investigating unexplained death of woman. This article is unattributed. Police are investigating the unexplained death of a woman at a home in East Kilbride. Officers were called to the property on Meadow Close shortly after 4 a.m. on Saturday. A 38-year-old woman was pronounced dead inside the house. The force are treating the death as unexplained and an investigation has been launched. A police van was pictured outside the property days later. A report will be sent to the Procurator Fiscal. A spokesperson said, "Around 4:05 a.m. on Saturday, May the 4th, we were called to a property in Meadow Close, East Kilbride, where a 38-year-old woman was pronounced dead. The death has been treated as unexplained and inquiries are ongoing. A report will be sent to the Procurator Fiscal in due course." And the article was unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Monday the 10th of May, from the news section, protesters disrupt Barclays AGM in Glasgow. This article is unattributed. Protesters gathered yesterday in Glasgow, where the Barclays AGM was held. Dozens took to the SEC Armadillo in an attempt to influence shareholders meeting inside the building. The crowd claimed the bank now holds over £2 billion in shares of companies whose weapons, components and military technology were used by Israel and Gaza. Participants also criticised the company for being the number one European bank financing fossil fuels since the Paris Agreement, investing over $190 billion. Flags, signs and banners were displayed at the demonstration as speakers addressed the group. Members of the Gaza Genocide Emergency Committee, Extinction Rebellion, Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign and more took part in the protest. Ben Jamal, Palestine Solidarity Campaign Director, said, "The only way to get Barclays to do the right thing is by drawing public attention to their role in facilitating Israel's genocide and hitting their profits. Just as South African anti-apartheid campaigners did, we too will force Barclays to withdraw in shame from Israel's arms supply chain." Jen Newell, climate scientist and eco-strategist from XR Scotland, said, "I'm speaking at this demonstration today to remind people of their power and their agency, encourage anyone who banks with us or has shares with Barclays to look deep within and consider if they can really accept contributing to these issues by supporting Barclays and their awful track record." The Barclays website said in relation to the claims, "We trade in shares of listed companies in response to client instruction or demand that they may result in us holding shares. We are not making investments for Barclays, and Barclays is not a shareholder or investor in that sense in relation to these companies. Fossil fuels are still required for many essential activities, including electricity generation, transport and heating. We are taking a thoughtful and carefully considered approach to support a changing energy sector, focusing our capital and resources on those energy companies investing in scaling clean energy, with greater scrutiny on those developing new oil and gas projects, which may represent greater transition risk, as well as locking in longer term emissions. And that article was unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 10th of May, from the news section. Swinney challenged over teacher cuts planned for Glasgow. Report by Stuart Patterson. John Swinney has been challenged over teacher cuts in schools during his first outing at First Minister's Questions. Both Douglas Ross of the Conservatives and Anna Sarwar of Labour demanded action to prevent the axing of 450 teachers in the city. The call came after a day of protests in Glasgow over cuts. Ross asked the First Minister if he would keep a promise to increase the teacher numbers by 3,500 by 2026. He said, "Yesterday, parents in Glasgow protested cuts to teacher numbers. They say they are fighting for their kids' education because these cuts will make it, in their words, impossible for schools to support pupils properly." Sarwar asked, will he step in and save those teachers' jobs and protect young people's education? Swinney attacked both the Tories and Labour and put the blame more generally on the UK government, and in Glasgow highlighted the actions of the Labour Party, which was in charge in the city. He said public finances were under enormous pressure as a result of UK imposed austerity and inflation reduced the value of money that is available. Swinney said under the Conservatives, the country was dealing with rampant inflation and said the financial position for funding public services is acutely challenging and was now very different than in 2016 or 2021. He said tax decisions by the Scottish Government meant there was £1 billion more available to spend than had they not been taken. He said, "I assure parents in the city of Glasgow of the Government's commitment to sustained investment in education and to maximise the investment we can make available." Responding to the Labour leader, he said the delivery of education was a matter for local councils and he wouldn't be instructing councils on what to do. On Glasgow's budget cuts, he added, "One of the issues faced by Glasgow City Council has been the resolution of the equal pay disgrace presided over by Labour when they ran Glasgow City Council. Women for many years were let down. The Labour Party went to the courts to challenge low-paid women. They should be ashamed." Sarwar accused the First Minister of obfuscation and said fresh leadership was needed and asked, why should Scotland accept more of the same? Swinney hit back, stating, "I have news for Anna Sarwar. The fresh leadership has just arrived. I'm right here to deliver it." He said he was meeting with council leaders to the Cosler today to discuss local government matters. And that report was by Stuart Patterson. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 11th of May, from the news section. Cold call firm boss hit with heavy penalties. Article written by Aidan MacDonald. The former boss of a Clydebank nuisance cold call firm has been banned from being a company director for 8 years. Duncan Paul, an ex-director of now liquidated CRDNN Limited, made staff at his company carry out 1.6 million cold calls per day over 4 months in 2018. The 51-year-old from Balmore in East Dunbartonshire resigned from the company, which went under in 2021. The Information Commissioner's Office, ICO, fined CRDNN Limited the maximum amount, £500,000, in 2020 after a raid on its premises in March 2018 revealed it had made more than 63 million automated calls. However, the fine went unpaid. His co-director, Stephen Foote, 49, was previously banned from being a company director in January last year. Mike Smith, chief investigator at the Insolvency Service, said, Duncan Paul's company plagued homes and businesses with nuisance cold calls, disrupting the lives of millions of people. The calls were persistent, totally unsolicited, and to add to people's frustration, they received further calls when they attempted to opt out of receiving them. Paul and Foote were the directors of this firm, and we have taken robust action to prevent them each from running or managing any company for 8 years. Trevor Callaghan, the ICO's Director of Enforcement and Investigations, added, The director of CRDNA knowingly operated their business with a complete disregard for not only the law but also public safety. They harassed millions of people, causing disruption, annoyance and distress, and recklessly affected important services, potentially putting the wider public in danger. That's why their conduct called for the maximum fine possible under the law. The ICO is committed to building strong partnerships with other agencies, including the Insolvency Service, to ensure our work has long-term, tangible impact. Disrupting the activities of these rogue companies and their directors ensures they can't easily resurface under a different name and continue to cause further harm to people. And that article was written by Aidan MacDonald. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 11th of May, from the news section. Drunk man spat at and abused his neighbour. Report by Lauren Brownlee. A man repeatedly abused his neighbour by spitting on from his veranda and calling her fat. Hugh Donegan, 64, appeared in the dock at Glasgow Sheriff Court for the first time following a string of incidents between August and September last year. The hearing heard that the woman was with her partner and another neighbour in a garden at Kinnell Avenue in Cardonald at 5 p.m. on August 29. They spotted Donegan come out onto his veranda. He was drunk. He started shouting, "Grassing B," expletive deleted, at the woman before spitting down to where she was. His spit did not make contact with anyone. Donegan continued to shout at the woman, who did not respond. He shouted, "Fat cow," before shouting, "P***I, P***K," at her partner. He continued to shout, including, "Go and get a wash, you're such a clatty B," expletive deleted. He was told to stop and get back into his flat, which he eventually did. Days later, the woman made a report to police. Donegan was then traced at his home and taken to Cathcart Police Office, where he was cautioned and charged. He was released with special bail conditions not to approach, contact or communicate with the woman in any way. He was also ordered not to attend her front door, where she had a Ring doorbell camera. But on September the 2nd, the woman had finished her work early. About 4:40 p.m, she heard the closed door slam before seeing a recording of the accused walking past her door and shouting, "Fat B," expletive deleted. On September 13th, the woman returned home following a trip to England. As she parked her car and approached the closed door, she heard Donegan shout, "F***ERS, back," from his window. Shortly after, he passed her door and shouted, "F, expletive deleted, cows back," before going to his veranda door and shouting, "Fat B," expletive deleted. Police were contacted. At the hearing, Donegan's lawyer revealed that her client has an outstanding matter involving the same woman. The defence solicitor added, since the other offence, he is no longer allowed back into his address. He's living with his sister, but that's not permanent. Whately Group is dealing with the matter, but is waiting for the outcome of the other offence. The lawyer said Donegan is embarrassed. She said, he suffers from mental health problems. It seems to stem from his work in the army. He's engaging with services at present. They think he may have a PTSD. He has a problem with alcohol. He was drinking at the time of the offences. Sheriff Mary Shields told him, "Your behaviour is unacceptable." She deferred sentencing for an assessment to find out Donegan's suitability for the alcohol court. The consideration of a non-harassment order was continued. And that article was written by Lauren Brownlee.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 13th of May. MSP's call to ban mobile phones inside schools. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Action on banning pupils from using mobile phones in schools has been called for by an MSP. Pauline McNeill, Glasgow Labour MSP, highlighted inappropriate content being shared and cyberbullying in schools. She asked the Education Secretary if she planned to issue guidance to schools encouraging them to prohibit the use of mobile phones by pupils and what policies are being considered to tackle the problem. Ms McNeill said, in secondary schools, the behaviour that is most commonly reported by staff as having the greatest negative impact is pupils using mobile phones when they should not be. People commonly assume that smartphones are a problem only in secondary schools, but one of my constituents has raised concerns about his child's primary school, which has had problems with inappropriate content being circulated on WhatsApp groups and bullying via smartphones. Jenny Gilruth, Education Secretary, said that the government would shortly publish updated guidance on the use of mobile phones in schools. She said, as a starting point for that guidance, head teachers should be empowered to take any action that they deem to be necessary, including banning mobile phone use, should they see fit. She added that many head teachers have already chosen to do that in their schools. Ms Gilruth added that mobile phone use was a key finding from the behaviour in Scottish schools research that the Scottish Government published in November. She added, the government has a number of policies on anti-bullying, which we take extraordinarily seriously. It's worth putting on record that in the coming weeks, following the publication of the mobile phone guidance, we will publish an updated national action plan to address some of the challenges with behaviour in our schools. Through that work, we will seek to ensure that our anti-bullying policies are updated. The Minister said it was not only a problem in schools. She added, it's worth recording the real challenge that exists with mobile technology, and I would observe that the issue relates not only to schools, but to our discourse in the Parliament. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 13th of May. Chief Constable joins officers on foot patrol in Glasgow city centre. An article written by Rosie Lewis. The Chief Constable of Police Scotland joined officers on foot patrol in Glasgow city centre as she says that judicial change is not happening fast enough. Joe Farrell described the Scottish judicial system as very inefficient compared to the Crown Prosecution Service in England, despite efforts in Glasgow Sheriff Court and Dundee Sheriff Courts, which she said were led by very forward-thinking individuals. The overtime spend on officers attending court added up to £3 million in the past year, despite the majority not being required to give evidence. Ms Farrell also said plans to reduce resources spent on 101 calls under a proportionate response model were due to be rolled out imminently across the country, enabling a focus on frontline policing. She also pledged to cut time spent on mental health calls, which could be as frequent as 3 or 4 calls per minute on a busy day. Ms Farrell said officers would take those in distress to third-party support, but described provisions as a postcode lottery. She said that the demands of mental health calls were consuming time equivalent to 600 police officers per year, out of a service of around 16,000. She also said the demands of court attendance was placing a strain on officers' lives. Ms Farrell said she welcomed work done by the Sheriff Principals of Glasgow Sheriff Court and Dundee Sheriff Court to improve efficiencies, but said it was not fast enough, and that victims were often asking officers, why is this happening, due to repeated delays. Ms Farrell said, what I've observed is a system that is very inefficient. That is having a significant impact on policing. It is not joined up at all. She added, some of the challenge that goes with it is partly in relation to mental health. Every 3 to 4 minutes there's a call of that nature coming into our control rooms. The other thing that I've been very surprised at is the amount of money, time and resources we have to dedicate around officers being called into court to give evidence. On Friday evening, Ms Farrell accompanied officers on foot patrol in Glasgow city centre and thanked them for their hard work on the force. A spokesperson for the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service said, we work with Police Scotland and the Court Service, who schedule trials, to have witness availability taken into account when trials are fixed. We also work with the police to ensure that cases are ready to proceed. The Fiscal Service believes that effective case management has the capacity to transform the experience of witnesses in the justice system and to reduce unnecessary attendance. The summary case management pilot, which adopts that approach, has resulted in cases being resolved more quickly with less disruptive impact on victims and witnesses. A spokesperson for the Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service said, "The judiciary has been at the forefront of criminal justice reform in Scotland. It's these reforms which, with the approval of the Government and Parliament, have transformed the trial landscape, especially at High Court level." It said comparisons with other jurisdictions are complex and generally unhelpful. An article written by Rosie Lewis. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 13th of May. Council backs public control of buses as SPT consults on franchising. An article written by Drew Sandylance. Glasgow City Council has reiterated its strong support for public control of buses as it responds to consultation on the future of the region's services. Strathclyde Partnership for Transport, or SPT, is currently consulting on plans for the bus network across Glasgow and surrounding areas and has made 5 recommendations. These include franchising, which could allow SPT or a similar body to set routes and fares and then contract bus operators to run them, and bus service improvement partnerships, which involve private and public sector commitments to improve a network. Small-scale municipal bus companies to provide socially necessary services are also recommended, but SPT suggests voluntary partnerships with bus providers should be ruled out. Campaigners in favour of public control have said that improvement partnerships would delay the process, while bus operators' first group are opposed to franchising. Glasgow City Council has now agreed its response to the consultation, which supports work on franchising but somewhat opposes ruling out voluntary partnerships. The Council neither supports nor opposes the recommendation on improvement partnerships, but does say they are not likely to be a long-term strategy towards delivering a bus network which meets the requirements of the public. It's clear that any improvement partnerships should be short-term and time-limited, and progressing franchising is the primary aspiration over the medium term. Improvement partnerships should not delay franchising work, and should funding or resources required to be prioritised, then work to progress franchising should take precedence, the response adds. Voluntary partnerships should still be a short-term option, the Council suggests, as the Glasgow City Region Bus Partnership has achieved improvement for bus passengers in recent years, including capped fares and tap-on, tap-off technology on some services. It will take time for any other bus governance intervention to be implemented, particularly when there is currently no certainty over funding availability for these bus governance changes, the response adds. Glasgow City Council would argue it is in the best interests of bus passengers to continue the Glasgow City Region Bus Partnership and positive dialogue and partnership working within that, whilst other options are being explored by SPT. It's been estimated that taking the franchising process to the point of implementation could cost around £15 million and take 5 to 7 years. Glasgow's response notes that the funding context on bus franchising has changed in recent years, with the Scottish Government pausing the Bus Partnership Fund for 2024-2025, as well as removing capital funding for SPT. It also strongly supports investigating municipal bus services, but adds the full cost is unknown and it doesn't currently have the funding available to take this forward. It's requested a more active and collaborative role in the next stages of the work and believes that SPT's plans can better link with the Clyde Metro as an overarching and integrated public transport concept in the city and region. An article written by Drew Sandylance. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 13th of May. Warning that cuts will make health problems worse. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Planned cuts to community health services will make Glasgow's much documented problems like life expectancy even worse, it has been warned. Glasgow's Integration Joint Board is meeting this week to approve cuts of more than £6 million that will see more than 100 jobs axed. The Glasgow Times revealed the planned cuts last week. Unison, which represents health and care workers in the city, said they must be stopped and funding found to save vital services for some of the most vulnerable people in Glasgow. It's feared the people in the poorest communities will be the most affected. Jerry McCartney, Professor of Wellbeing Economy at Glasgow University, said, "Life expectancy in the poorest 30% of areas in Scotland has been getting worse for 12 years now as a result of austerity policies. Further cuts to NHS services, including health visitors, is likely to make this situation even worse. Governments at all levels need to realise the catastrophic impacts that austerity is continuing to have in our communities." The cuts will see jobs in public health, mental health, addictions and care at home lost, with a hospital at home service to be axed completely. Margaret McCarthy, Unison Assistant Branch Secretary for NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, said, "Our members in community health teams go above and beyond to save lives and build the health of the people of Glasgow. Given the pressure on the services they work in and the huge unmet need in the city, it's beyond belief that we are seeing cuts to NHS jobs. Local and national politicians must step in to save these jobs and protect health service capacity." The union wants the Scottish Government to step in and prevent the cuts. Cathy Miller, Unison Branch Secretary for NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, said, "As a trained nurse and a long-standing representative in the NHS, I'm shocked that this government is allowing cuts to frontline health service jobs in Glasgow. Until intervention from Unison, the board was preparing to cut so many health visitors that they'd be in breach of the recommendations from a fatal accident inquiry. They're still about to cut jobs from a range of services, including children's health services, and I'm calling on John Swinney and Neil Gray to step in and stop this madness." In a written report to be considered by the Integrated Joint Board at its meeting on Wednesday, Sharon Wearing, the Chief Financial Officer of the board, said, "Our priority has been to protect core services which deliver care to those who are acutely unwell, support prevention measures and deliver evidenced impact in improving the health and well-being of those who access the service. The outcome is that we have proposals which will result in reducing services which are not core services, to support those services which have the greatest impact in relation to improving the health and well-being of those who access these services." An article written by Stuart Patterson. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 13th of May. Glasgow's RNIB Connect radio wins top award. An article written by Sandhya Suresh. A Glasgow-based radio station has been crowned the Community Station of the Year. RNIB Connect Radio was established by the sight loss charity, the RNIB, to provide news, entertainment and information to blind and partially sighted people across the UK. The accolade was part of the 2024 Audio and Radio Industry Awards, also known as the ARIAs. More than 1,000 entries were submitted and judged by more than 200 senior audio and radio practitioners. Yvonne Milne, head of RNIB Connect Radio, said, "We are so incredibly thrilled to have won a Gold ARIAs Award. RNIB Connect Radio aims to centre voices from the blind and partially sighted community, as well as to provide a wide range of information and programming for people of no or low vision, and to be honoured with this award means so much to us at the station. We are beyond delighted." The station, which commemorated its 20th anniversary last year, began as an internet radio station to provide essential information to aid individuals with sight loss. The station has grown to reach 90,000 listeners, with its podcast being downloaded more than 20,000 times every month. It has a staff of 12 presenters, all of whom have sight loss. The ARIAs ceremony took place at the Theatre Royal in Drury Lane in London on May the 7th. An article written by Sandhya Suresh. Glasgow Times on Monday the 13th of May. Opinion. Support needed for shift to all-day off-peak train fares. A column written by Martha Wardrop. In October 2023, the Scottish Government introduced a pilot scheme to remove peak rail fares and shift to off-peak fares all day. There is a need to ensure that this scheme is made permanent to build a fairer, greener rail service. Currently, this groundbreaking scheme has been extended until June 2024, which was secured by the Scottish Greens during their time in government. This decision to remove peak rail fares has already supported hundreds of thousands of commuters through the cost of living crisis. It's a change that has cut the cost of public transport and provided vital savings which support household budgets. Every pound that is saved on a commute is money that can instead go towards heating, eating, or any of the other expenses that have piled up for households and families all over Glasgow as a result of the Tory-inflicted cost of living crisis. The scheme has been backed by Scotland's rail unions and the STUC, who have called peak time fares an unfair tax on workers. We know that peak rail fares are an unfair cost for the many workers and students who do not have any choice about when they start work or go to study. This is why the Scottish Greens agreed with ministers to deliver the pilot scheme. These cheaper, greener rail fares have already helped give drivers a reason to leave their cars at home and to try the train instead. By making the scheme permanent, we can ensure that even more people are able to feel its benefits and change their long-standing habits. There is no way for us to tackle the climate crisis without drastically reducing the number of cars on our roads. One of the best ways to do this is to ensure that public transport and greener travel are affordable and attractive choices for travellers. Rail Industry Association research from 2021 showed that every pound spent on rail travel generated £2.50 into the wider economy. It's been possible for the Scottish Greens to secure free bus travel for everyone under 22 and record investment in walking, wheeling and cycling infrastructure, and we have built on that with a pilot to scrap peak rail fares. We have to recognise the importance of providing cheaper, greener railway journeys and consider that they are a way to tackle the climate crisis as well as supporting workers and families. During their time in government, Scottish Green MSPs strongly supported the move to bring ScotRail back into public ownership. We must now put that to good use and ensure that our rail network delivers for people and the planet. We have to prevent a return to peak fares in June. This price hike would have a negative impact on the number of train passengers. Every effort must be made to make our railways more affordable, accessible and reliable. With a change of First Minister and the end of this pilot scheme upcoming, we are calling on the Cabinet Secretary for Transport to remove peak time rail fares in Scotland permanently. A column written by Martha Wardrop, who is a Scottish Green councillor for Glasgow Hillhead. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 13th of May. Lawyer says the alcohol court is key to helping people with addiction. An exclusive article written by Esther Tarnay. A Glasgow lawyer said the alcohol court saves lives as he admitted that drinking features in most, if not every case he works on. As part of our Glasgow Times Investigates series examining alcohol and justice, we spoke with Harun Malik, a partner at MCO Defence Solicitors. Having dealt with hundreds of clients at Glasgow Sheriff Court, he revealed how the court system approaches alcohol issues. He said, "I would say drugs or alcohol feature in most, if not every case. If you have consumed alcohol and then offended, you can't use that as an excuse. You're responsible for your own actions, so the courts view it as an aggravating factor. But there's been a change in how the courts try to tackle the problem. They have specialist courts now." The Alcohol Court, which we have previously covered as part of this investigation, was set up in 2018 and focuses on helping, not punishing, people with addiction. Offenders need to be deemed suitable to appear there and commit fully to receiving help. The lawyer added, "If you show that you're trying to address your problems, the court recognises that, and it really does make a difference. You start to see them sometimes reduce or eliminate their alcohol intake. You see the offending tail off. I've seen people get jobs and work on their personal relationships. It cannot be stated the number of times where I've had clients commend sheriffs, social workers, the court and its agencies to have allowed them to get the support they need. It doesn't work with everybody, and it's an opportunity. It's not a soft touch by any means, and it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. I've seen the intervention from the alcohol court, and I've literally seen it save lives. This happens with the help of social and addiction workers and the sheriff, who follows the individual's progress through reports and court appointments. Mr. Malik said, "Each sheriff has their own style of assisting people, and I would very highly commend how they run the alcohol court, because sometimes people need consequences for their actions. The sheriffs are there to manage you effectively through it and to make a decision about whether or not you're progressing well. If not, there are serious consequences. If you don't make any effort, you're taken off the alcohol court and sentenced." Because it is so common, he meets people in various stages of recovery every day. The solicitor explained what may lead to someone finding themselves in this court: trauma and vulnerability. He said good people can develop these issues. You could be anyone from any part of life. I've seen professionals, self-employed people, and unemployed people. These problems can mount up, and very quickly you find yourself in custody, alienated from your family, with an addiction that you can't manage. I'm dealing with the most vulnerable people in society. Sometimes they were abused or were in care, or they are homeless, so they've not had a stable life. And sometimes they black out and they won't remember what it is they've done. It's a horrible thing to see. They have to come to terms with what they've done. It can go into a spiral of more alcohol abuse, more instability, and more offending. I feel really sad when I see somebody, a good person, feeling really bad about committing offences. But I believe there's always a way, and if you take responsibility for your actions, you can try to rebuild things that have broken down. And that's one of the reasons why I do the job. Mr. Malik also explained why it's difficult for someone with harmful drinking to quit. He said, "Nobody I know wants to go out and drink a litre of vodka in the morning. They want to stop drinking. They don't enjoy it. Some people, when they wake up in the morning, just to be okay, they have to consume alcohol. It's very traumatic to see people in front of you crying because they can't manage their addiction and they're offending and they're harming those closest to them. The issue is trying to stop because it's a very hard thing to do. Sometimes it can be dangerous and fatal if you don't have the right support. Going through detox without medical supervision is not advised. But some people don't have access to GPs and they can't articulate their position, or they're not registered with a GP practice. So these are the issues that we keep seeing again and again. It's very frequent." An exclusive article written by Esther Tarnay.
From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 14th of May, from the news section. Cops probe missing ashes and financial misconduct. Report by Sarah Ward and Ben Waddell. Police have launched a probe into a former funeral directors amid claims of missing ashes. Forensic officers were seen going into a branch of A. Milne Funeral Directors in Springburn after several families reported allegations of ashes going missing and financial misconduct. The firm also had a branch in Dumbarton, West Dumbartonshire, which has since closed. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, "An investigation is ongoing into the conduct of a former funeral company that had branches in Glasgow and Dumbarton with regard to the storage and return of cremated remains and allegations of financial misconduct. Inquiries are at an early stage." A post on Facebook announced the opening of the Springburn branch in 2019, which read, "At A. Milne Funeral Directors, we're committed to providing a dignified service with courtesy and respect to your loved one. Our services are available at any time, day or night, with experienced staff to help and assist you." The firm described itself as an independent, family-owned and operated organisation, and by a post by a customer described it as a father and daughter business. The director Steve Milne was born in 1967 and took up the position last January, the same month that ex-director Ashley Milne, born in 1987, ceased to be in the role, according to Companies House. The National Association of Funeral Directors has been contacted by families. A spokesperson for the National Association of Funeral Directors said, "We can confirm that the National Association of Funeral Directors has received a number of complaints about A. Milne, which have been scrutinised by our Committee for Professional Standards. The firm appears to have stopped corresponding with us. However, they have been formally notified that they will be considered by the National Association for Funeral Directors Disciplinary Committee at a meeting in May, where the ultimate sanction we have at our disposal is removal from membership. Under the terms of reference of the committee, we do not publicly disclose the details of complaints made. As a trade association, we have no statutory powers and regulate purely by consent. Therefore, expulsion from membership is the most severe penalty at our disposal." Email Funeral Directors has been approached for comment. In an article written by Sarah Ward and Ben Waddell. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 14th of May, from the news section, on this day. On this day in 1610, Henry IV of France, Good King Henry, was murdered by a mad monk in Paris. 1643, Louis XIV became King of France at the age of 4 years 231 days and reigned for more than 72 years. 1727, artist Thomas Gainsborough was born in Sudbury, Suffolk. 1779, the Oaks was first run at Epsom. 1796, Edward Jenner made his first vaccination against smallpox and laid the foundation for modern immunology. 1811, Paraguay proclaimed its independence. 1842, the British periodical Illustrated London News was first published. 1921, the British Legion was founded in London. It became the Royal British Legion in 1971. 1948, Israel was established as a Jewish state following the partition of Palestine. 1955, Eastern Bloc countries signed the Warsaw Pact. 1987, American actress Rita Hayworth died. 2001, leading experts on new variant CJD, the human form of BSE or mad cow disease, warned the outbreak could get much worse. On this day last year, wildflower habitats the size of 163 football pitches were revealed at the South Downs National Park to help bees flourish. Today's birthdays: Che Blythe, round the world yachtsman, 84. George Lucas, filmmaker, 80. Francesca Annis, actress, 79. David Byrne, musician, Talking Heads, 72. Robert Zemeckis, film director, 72. Tim Roth, actor, 63. Ian Astbury, singer, The Cult, 62. Kate Blanchett, actress, 55. Ollie Murs, singer, 40. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook co-founder, 40.
Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 14th of May, from the Lifestyle section. Janie Godley documentary out tomorrow, with dark humour. A documentary about Janie Godley will come out tomorrow and promises to have her classic dark humour. The Glasgow funny woman will appear in the film Janie, about the extraordinary life of the comedian. The 63-year-old had cameras following her on her 2023 Not Dead Yet tour, following her diagnosis of terminal cancer. It features reflections on a life which has encompassed being sexually abused as a child and her mother being murdered. It also includes her career, which has spanned cult online status, international tours and UK recognition on shows like Have I Got News for You? The documentary doesn't shy away from her potentially career-ending cancellation when offensive historic tweets emerged just shortly before she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. In the documentary film, Janie is touring with her best mate Shirley and her daughter comedian Ashley Storey, who can currently be seen in the lead role of the brand new BBC Scotland BBC Three comedy series Dinosaur, which she also co-created. Their relationship is woven throughout the film, with Ashley capturing intimate moments on tour. The documentary also sees Janie reviewing pivotal times in her life with her trademark take no prisoners honesty and dark humour. Janie grew up in poverty in Glasgow's East End. Her mother was an alcoholic, and as a child, Janie was sexually abused by her uncle. She tells the story of her mother's horrific murder when Janie was 21, revisiting the river where her mother's body was found. At age 19, Janie married into a notorious family of Glasgow gangsters. She ran a successful pub for them with her husband. Janie had always been funny, and when she and her husband fell out with his family, Janie reinvented herself as a comedian. A feature-length version of the documentary, directed by John Archer and produced by Hopscotch Films, with funding from BBC Scotland and Screen Scotland, was the closing film of this year's Glasgow Film Festival. John says, "It was a joy working with Janie over this past year and getting to know her. Nothing was off limits for filming. She is a great collaborator, totally open and happy to make people laugh, even about the bleakest moments in her life. And there have been a few." Janie says, "There's a lot of serious bits that are a wee bit difficult for me to watch because it's challenging, but what I love about it is none of it's rehearsed. It's all genuine documentary, on the hoof, off the cuff, and it's brilliant." You can watch Janie on the BBC Scotland channel and BBC iPlayer on Tuesday, May the 14th at 10 p.m. That was an article by Kirsty Feerick.
This is from the Glasgow Times on the 1st of May 2024 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Girl, 12, in hospital following hit and run in Wishaw." This article was by Morgan Carmichael. A 12-year-old has been taken to hospital following a hit and run. The girl was struck at around 4:30 p.m. on Cambus Neathan Street near the roundabout with Kirk Road on April 19th. She was later taken to Wishaw General Hospital, where she received treatment for facial injuries. The police are now looking for witnesses to the incident, which involved a silver 3-door Vauxhall Corsa hatchback, which failed to stop at the scene. Constable Paul Taylor said, "We are appealing for anyone who may have witnessed this collision and is yet to speak to officers to please get in touch. In particular, we would ask people with private CCTV or dashcam footage of the surrounding area on the afternoon of Friday, 19th of April, to check in case they have captured a silver Vauxhall Corsa. Anyone with information is asked to contact Police Scotland on 101, quoting incident number 2562 of Friday, April 19th, 2024. This article was by Morgan Carmichael. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 1st of May 2024 from the news section, and headline reads, "Glasgow EasyJet flight diverts due to disruptive passengers." This article was by Morgan Carmichael. A flight departing from Glasgow was diverted due to disruptive passengers. EasyJet flight EZY3165 was travelling from Glasgow to Hurghada on April 29th, when it was diverted to Heraklion after 2 passengers were behaving disruptively on board the aircraft. The pair were met by police officers after the aircraft landed in Heraklion. The flight then continued to Hurghada once the passengers were removed. Speaking on the incident, a spokesperson for EasyJet said, "EasyJet can confirm that flight EZY3165 from Glasgow to Hurghada on April 29th diverted to Heraklion, where the craft was met by police due to 2 passengers behaving disruptively on board. The flight then continued to Hurghada once the passengers were removed. EasyJet's cabin crew are trained to assess and evaluate all situations and to act quickly and appropriately to ensure that the safety of the flight and other passengers is not compromised at any time. While such incidents are rare, we take them very seriously and do not tolerate disruptive behaviour on board. The safety and well-being of passengers and crew is always EasyJet's highest priority. This article was by Morgan Carmichael. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 1st of May 2024 from the news section, and the headline reads, "More Glasgow buildings to be added to at-risk register." This article is by Stuart Patterson. Dozens more buildings are at risk in Glasgow. In our ongoing Glasgow Times Investigates series, looking into issues that people in the city are talking about and want to see action on, we are looking into the high volume of derelict properties in the city. There are almost 100 buildings listed as at risk in the city, according to the Historic Environment Scotland Register. The most recent survey, however, has found a 50% increase in buildings at risk. It means between 40 and 50 additional buildings will be officially considered at risk. Many are in and around the city centre as retail closures and stalled development following the COVID pandemic have affected the appearance of the main streets. The current register already has buildings at risk on several main city centre streets, including Argyle Street, Bath Street, Sauchiehall Street, Trongate and Union Street. Some are visibly in distress, while others may appear to the untrained eye safe, even though they are empty. Historic Environment Scotland maintains the at-risk register and regularly carries out updates and visual inspections of properties. Simon Stronach, Deputy Head of Planning at Historic Environment Scotland, said, "We recently carried out a survey of Glasgow's buildings at risk. This found, in common with other areas reviewed since the COVID pandemic, an approximate 50% increase in at-risk buildings. The condition of Glasgow's at-risk buildings is broadly comparable with other Scottish urban areas. The buildings have not been revealed, but the survey highlights some of the city's most famous streets." Mr Stronach added, "As would be expected, our survey found increased building vacancy along Sauchiehall Street and Argyle Street. The pandemic may have contributed to this by delaying regeneration schemes and reducing demand for some types of commercial buildings. It is good to see that Glasgow City Council has initiated that Golden Z project to stimulate regeneration of the city centre. We are finalising our Glasgow survey results and will update the register soon." This article was by Stuart Patterson. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 1st of May 2024 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Police lock down Rutherglen Stonelaw Road after death." This article is by Stacey Mullen. A pensioner has died after he was found injured, prompting a police investigation. The 89-year-old was discovered in the Stonelaw Road area of Rutherglen this morning at around 6:40 a.m. Police said 999 crews attended and he was pronounced dead at the scene. The residential area, which includes retirement housing, remains taped off while police investigate how the man died, with officers guarding the scene. So far, police have revealed his death is being treated as unexplained. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, "We were called around 6:40 a.m. on Wednesday, May 1st, to a report of a man found injured in the Stonelaw Road area of Rutherglen. Emergency services attended and an 89-year-old man was pronounced dead at the scene. The death is being treated as unexplained but not believed to be suspicious. Inquiries are ongoing to establish the full circumstances." This article was by Stacey Mullen. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 1st of May 2024 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Scottish Government facing no confidence motion today." This article is by Morgan Carmichael. The Scottish Government are facing a no-confidence debate in Holyrood today. Tabled by Anas Sarwar last week following the end of the Bute House Agreement, and at the height of the instability for the government, the motion will be pressed despite First Minister Humza Yousaf's decision to announce he will step down. If passed by MSPs, the motion would compel the First Minister to resign immediately under the terms of the Scotland Act, with Holyrood given 28 days to elect a new First Minister before an election is called. While unlikely to pass, due to the likelihood the Scottish Greens will abstain, it will gain the support of the Tories and Lib Dems. Speaking to the PA News Agency on Tuesday, Mr Sarwar said he wanted to use the motion to highlight the need for a Holyrood election following the turmoil in the SNP. He added that the genie was out of the bottle for the SNP, adding, "I think this is a dysfunctional, chaotic, divided political party." The decision to press ahead with the vote, he said, was a point of principle, adding, "We also want to highlight the democratic deficit," as they themselves described it when they were talking about Westminster and the Conservatives. Mr Sarwar said he was desperate for a Scottish election alongside a Westminster one, which will be held later this year, adding his party was ready for elections. Meanwhile, Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross withdrew a motion of no confidence in the First Minister following his decision to stand down. Declaring job done, Mr Ross added, "I'm delighted that the Scottish Conservative motion of no confidence in Humza Yousaf achieved its purpose by forcing him to resign. While, on a personal level, I wish him well for the future. He was a disaster as First Minister, and it's in Scotland's interest that he goes." The motion comes at the end of a tumultuous week in Scottish politics, with the collapse of the Bute House Agreement between the SNP and the Greens sparking a chain of events which led to the First Minister's resignation. This article was by Morgan Carmichael.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.